Welcome to the second part of this series on modal verbs. I'm John Teacher and I'm here to make it easier for you to learn English. In today's video, we'll discuss the English modal verbs might, must, and ought to, and learn how to use them correctly in English. If you watched the first episode, you've already learned about the modal verbs can, could, and may. But check the link in the description if you have yet to see it. Let's quickly review can, could, and may so that we can connect them to sentences that contain the modal verbs may, must, and ought to later in this video. The modal verb can is placed before the main verb to help us understand a person's ability, like this. I can do 20 push-ups. Now, can gives us a great sense of ability. The modal verb could is placed before the main verb to help us understand that the sentence contains a possibility or intention. For instance, we could practice speaking English intentionally for another 30 minutes if you have time. Possibility. Can refers to something with a strong possibility. I can cook a delicious meal for your birthday. I can cook shows a certainty that a person is confident at cooking. Could is used to refer to something that has a weak possibility. I could buy an expensive cake for her birthday, maybe, if I have enough money. I could and maybe shows us that it is a weak or slight possibility that that person can do that. So, we know the modal verbs can and could represent a possibility, intention, and a person or thing's ability to do something. So what about the modal verbs might, must, and ought to? Let's take a closer look at each one. Might is used to express possibility or ask for permission. For example, I might go to the beach this weekend. Now, in the sentence, the speaker may or may not be there at the weekend. Another example, might I borrow your pen? Now, this is a very polite method for asking for something or permission to borrow something. Might is also used to express uncertainty. It is similar to may, if you were thinking about that, but might is slightly less confident. For example, I might go to the store later. In this sentence, it's possible to be at the store later, but I'm still deciding about it. I haven't made a decision. Using may in the same sentence is more confident than might. The degree of uncertainty in this statement is lower with might than may. And if you're wondering how to scale the uncertainty or certainty of modal verbs, take a look at this chart, which you can use throughout the series to guide you. I'll also include it in this description down here below for you to download. Now, let's look at the modal verb must. Must is used to express necessity, obligation. It is used to say that something is required. So, for example, I must finish my homework before I can watch TV. Now, this means that there is a necessary condition for the speaker to watch TV. And that condition is that they have an obligation to finish their homework. Another example, you must not use your cell phone while driving. Now here, this sentence means it is always best not to use your cell phone while driving because there is a severe risk of harmful consequences. One consequence is receiving a fine from the police, and another is that you could get hurt in an accident. In short, must is an actual obligation, and if you break that obligation, you are responsible for your actions. Check the chart if you have already downloaded it, and you can see the scale where must is. Now, another example of must is I must finish this report by tomorrow. Now, here we can understand it is the speaker's responsibility to complete the report by tomorrow. Must gives the sense that there could be consequences for the speaker if the report is not completed on time. So, there is also a sense of urgency in must. Ought to is used to express a strong recommendation or to give advice. For example, you ought to brush your teeth twice a day. Now that means it is strongly recommended that the person brushes their teeth twice a day. On the chart, ought to is 50 to 60%, and the sentence implies advice more than duty. So the speaker is helping the other person make a decision about their health. So with that in mind, ought to is used to give advice or make a recommendation. And it is similar to should, but it is not as strong as should. For example, you ought to study for your exams. In this sentence, ought to means that it is a good idea for you to study your exams. But if you say you should study for your exams, this sounds more urgent to a native speaker. We will look at that more in detail in another episode. Actually, the next episode. Now, if we compare ought to with must, we know that they are both used to express obligation, but ought to is a less intense obligation than must. One more time. Ought to is a less intense obligation than must. For example, I ought to clean my room is meant that it is a good idea or the right thing to do to clean the room, but it is still optional, whereas must implies it is 100% necessary to clean the room because if it's not done, there may be consequences for the person involved. Now that we've covered the primary usage of might, must, and ought to, we can practice using them in sentences. But first, I want you to take notice of the construction of the sentence because it's essential to remember that modal verbs are placed before the main verb's base form, not its infinitive form. Okay? So, like this. In this example, I must go is correct, but not like this. I must to go, which is the infinitive form. Right? Now, I mention this because some students may find using ought to confusing because it is an exception. Okay? So just remember that ought always uses to and is not linked to the to of the infinitive form of the main verb. So, I ought to go is correct. Okay? When you compare this to other modal verbs, you can see that it is actually unusual to use to twice before a main verb. So the following examples will need to be corrected. I would to eat, incorrect. I may to arrive is incorrect. I can to drive is incorrect. I should to walk is incorrect. But I ought to fly is an exception and it's correct. Anyway, now with the same examples, if we include another main verb after the modal verb, which implies a desire, and then use another verb that implies action, the action verb is used in its infinitive form like this. I would like to go. And the infinitive form here is correct. And you can do the same with the other previous examples. I may like to arrive is correct. I can try to drive is correct. I should try to walk is correct. Now for a little test. Look at these three sentences and decide to which ones we can apply these labels. Permission, possibility, recommendation, advice, obligation, necessity. Additionally, you can use two labels in one single sentence and then use them again in another, if you wish. Number 1. I might visit you at the beach this weekend, if that's okay with you. Number 2. You ought to visit your friends at the beach on Saturday. Number 3. You must visit your friends at the beach on Friday night. Okay, how did you do? Let's look at them again and compare answers. I might visit you at the beach this weekend, if that's okay with you. Now here, might is used to express possibility when asking for permission. Number 2, you ought to visit your friends at the beach on Saturday. What do you think? So ought to is used to express a strong recommendation or to give advice. Number 3, you must visit your friends on the beach on Friday night. Go and have fun. Must is used to express necessity or obligation, and it is used to say that something is required or necessary. So it's very, very, very necessary to go have some fun. Now, let's take a look at some examples using the modal verbs can, could, and may, and link them with the ones we learned in this video. Number 1. I might go to the library on Tuesday, but I'm still deciding. But I can go on Friday. Number 2. You must turn off your phone during the movie, or there could be many angry people. 3. We ought to start preparing for our trip soon because it may be cheaper to book earlier. Great! We covered a lot in this video, and please feel free to write down your examples in the comments below. I hope this tutorial has helped you understand the use of might, must, and ought to. If you have any questions about modal verbs, leave them in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer them. If you missed the first episode, the link is down below in the description. And next time, we will be covering more modal verbs: shall, should, will, and would. So look out for that. You can also use the link in the description to download the chart we used to show the percentage of certainty in modal verbs. If you want more educational content, please click here, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching. I'm going to have a cup of tea. Bye.